You hear the term post-truth everywhere, right? And usually it comes with this sense of panic, this idea that facts just don't matter anymore. But what if that common fear is based on a big misunderstanding? Well, today we're going to dig into what post-truth really means and move right past the panic to get some clarity. So, how are we going to do that? First, we'll tackle that whole post-truth panic. Then, we'll get super clear on what post-truth isn't, before diving into what it is, which is really a new context for truth, one that's shaped by facts, sure, but also by feelings and stories. And finally, we'll talk about your role in all this. It's going to be a quick journey from confusion to clarity. All right, first up, the post-truth panic. Let's just dive right in and address that widespread anxiety that so many of us feel whenever we hear this term. You know, at the heart of this panic, it all really boils down to one single, kind of terrifying question. Is objective truth dead? Have we really entered a world where facts are just opinions and anybody can just make up their own reality? This is the fear that's fueling so many of our modern debates. But here's the thing, and this is so important. This entire panic is pretty much based on a misinterpretation. The actual academic idea isn't that truth has been completely destroyed. So if post-truth isn't the end of truth, then what in the world is it? Which brings us right to our second section, where we're going to dismantle that popular but wrong idea. This is where we really get to the heart of the concept. Okay, so this is the absolute core of it. The big misconception is that truth has just disappeared, vanished, poof. But the reality? Oh, it's much more interesting. It hasn't disappeared, it's been reconfigured. It's not that the facts are gone, it's that the whole value system we use to interpret them has shifted. So here's a good working definition for us. Post-truth is a condition where facts don't just reach us directly and cleanly. Instead, they get filtered through other powerful forces. You know, think of it like putting on a pair of colored sunglasses. The world is still there, but the lens changes how you see it. And what's really important to get here is that this wasn't some sudden break from the past. It wasn't a complete rupture. It's more of a gradual shift in emphasis. We're just putting more weight on different parts of the whole knowledge equation now. So that naturally leads us to our third section, where we get to explore this new context. I mean, if facts are being filtered, then how exactly is knowledge getting built, and how does it find its meaning in this new environment? Now, this is a huge idea. For a long time, we kind of thought of knowledge as this perfect, clean mirror that just reflects reality. But the post-truth perspective says, nope, it's actually more like a sculpture. It's something that's actively constructed and shaped by our conversations, by our language, by our discourse. And what happens then? Well, a direct result is that you get a pluralization of truth. Because if knowledge is constructed, then you can take the same set of basic facts and use them to build multiple competing versions of the truth. And they can all coexist, each one built inside its own logical framework. And this idea has a name: relational truth. Think about it. A fact, like a statistic, is really just a number floating in space. It's totally meaningless on its own. It only gets its power, its significance, when it gets placed inside a story or a specific context, or when it's presented to a community that shares a certain worldview. The meaning is in the relationship. All right, so if facts are being filtered through context and stories, let's get a little more specific. What are those filters exactly? In this section, we're going to look at the three big ones that are shaping our reality every day. Okay, here they are, the three key mediators that stand between raw data and what we actually believe. First, there's our own subjective interpretation. Second is our affective response, which is really just a fancy way of saying our gut feeling or our emotional reaction. And third, the narrative framing. In other words, the story that a fact is being used to tell. So here's the really crucial change. It used to be that emotion and personal experience were seen as, less reliable than cold hard logic. But in a post-truth condition, how much a piece of information resonates with us emotionally, how much it feels true, has become a valid and powerful way of knowing, right alongside rational analysis. And this has a really interesting and important outcome. It kind of cracks the door open. Think about it. When personal experience and emotional truth start to be valued as legitimate ways of knowing, it challenges a system that has historically prioritized only one kind of data. This allows perspectives from marginalized communities, perspectives often dismissed as just anecdotal, to enter the mainstream conversation and actually claim their own validity. Okay, so all of this brings us to the final and honestly the most important part: our responsibility. What is our role in all of this? If this is the world we live in, how do we navigate it? And I want to be absolutely crystal clear on this point. Understanding the mechanics of post-truth is not, I repeat, not the same as saying anything goes, or that all opinions are equally true. It is not an endorsement of lying or just abandoning critical thought. In fact, it's the exact opposite. Because this new landscape, it demands more from us, not less. It calls on us to build up our own critical toolkit. First, we have to evaluate our sources more carefully than ever before. Second, we have to get good at recognizing the rhetorical tricks and narrative strategies being used on us. And finally, we have to always stay aware of the ethical dimensions of how information is being presented. And really, that's the entire point. Learning about post-truth isn't supposed to make you feel cynical or hopeless. It's meant to be a critical tool that empowers you. It's about transforming you from someone who just passively consumes information into an active, critical interpreter who really understands how meaning is being made all around you. So I'll end with this question for you to think about. If facts get their meaning from the stories we tell, and there are always multiple stories competing for our attention, then the real power is in understanding that process. So, knowing all this, in a world of competing narratives, how will you choose to build yours?